get my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most wonderful homesteading channel on the planet that typically doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with homesteading. It has to do with spoiled ducks, as you can hear, who scream every time they hear my voice because they expect food. Homesteading off the grid. Folks, we're down here in my front field. I'm showing you, trying to, if I can keep the sun from blinding you, the beautiful man-made forest that my family and I planted when we bought this property 9 years ago. This was a hay field. We planted literally over 2,000 trees. We keep it mowed in between the rows so we can have a good time down here, walk around, look at how much it's grown. So listen, I have undeniable proof, another trail, we'll go up that one, that we're better off without our government. We're safer when it's in shutdown. All right, let me show you some of these trees. I'm gonna walk up to the campground. I'm gonna tell you a creepy October nights story that is scarier than anything I'll tell this month because it is so true and it affects all of us, whether you believe in the paranormal or not, because it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with extreme reality no one can deny. Check this out, yellow tulip poplars. Nothing in here was as tall as me when we planted it 9 years ago. Now we got stuff that's just, 30 feet high. Yellow tulip poplars, wild black cherries. Look at this beautiful autumn blaze maple and its full autumn glory. Beautiful, beautiful. We have 222 trees here. Oh man, it's great. Look at these cedars. We've got eastern red cedars in the front and we've got them scattered sporadically throughout so that even when all the leaves fall off in the fall, such as they've done on this eastern redbud tree, we still have privacy from the road. All right. Oh, I gotta show you this. Another maple, some cherries. They're beautiful. All right, so let me get straight to it. So I just finished my morning run. I ran 3 miles, nice and easy, 8-minute mile pace, nothing hard. Just, isn't it beautiful? Enough to stay fit, enough to stay healthy, which they don't want us to do. Keep that in mind. I'm telling you, I'm going to start talking about caca hoochoo a little bit more, even though I was strongly encouraged to just stop discussing it because they've had another outbreak in Virginia, down in the southwestern part of the state, and I have truly fallen in love with my new flock. And I'm being proactive and preemptive this time, talking about stuff. In the event I come out here one morning at any time and all 34 of my birds are deceased. But look at that beautiful maple tree up there, and the birds live right there. That's where they live anyway. So I'm just going around, show you where a big old buck destroyed one of my locust trees. Look at this. Yeah, they're in rut. All right, so anyway, I want you to pay special attention to the sky. Look at the sky. It is as clear as a crystal. Clear as a crystal. Now, I wish I'd have remembered the person's name that left this comment in a video. Just randomly left this comment in a video the other day. It was attached to a video of a short story I read, something I'd written years ago, Halloween related. And he said, "Hey, Crazy Lake, look at the sky. Look at the sky as I tell you this." He said, "Have you noticed, now that the government's been shut down for weeks, moving closer to a month, we're in the third week now, that the chemtrails have disappeared?" And I thought about it, and I thought, I've not noticed, because I've not been looking up enough. I've not been paying as much attention to my surroundings, I guess, as I brag about normally doing. There's the house down there, built in 1903. So I thought, well, I'm going to notice. So the next morning, which was yesterday, I went out and I did my morning run. I ran 30 minutes yesterday. It's closer to 4 miles. And I was looking around. I was like, there's no chemtrails. I'm like, well, must not be any flights. But sure enough, I saw a plane and no chemtrail, and I just heard a loud thunderous knock. They know we're coming. He, she, it, or they. And no, that's not, I don't play the pronoun brigade, brah. That is lunacy. I just don't know if Bigfoot Sasquatch wants to be referred to as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So I say both, Bigfoot Sasquatch, and I use he, she, it, or they, because listen, when you're alone in the woods with something, potentially that is 8 feet tall and weighs 800 pounds, you don't want to offend it, brah. Because they don't go find their safe space and rock themselves back and forth and say you're a bigot. They will rip your limbs off, brah. So that's what the he, she, it, or they's all about. Got a bunch of alt-writers, I guess, giving me hell in the comment section because They think I'm a member of the pronoun brigade. Trust me, I am the furthest thing, but I know I'm a man. All right, let's keep going. Keep looking at the sky. Well, sure enough, so that was yesterday. So this morning, while I'm out for my morning run, I'm saying to myself, had to be a fluke. Just had to be a fluke. But all day yesterday, mind you, I'm looking at the sky. And my son had a football game yesterday. We went to that in the evening. We're out there the last hour and a half of daylight. I'm looking at the sky. No trail cams. And we won, by the way. We're now 6-2. This is the best record his high school has had in 20 years. They're doing great. The kids are doing great. There's 4 high schools in our county. We've played all other 3 so far this year, and we've crushed them. Shut one out, and the other 2 only scored against us once. So they've scored a total of 12 points against us, 3 teams. We've scored a combined 85 on them. So we are the dominant high school football team in our district and in our county. But there's my birds. Let's go say hi. Hey guys and girls, we do have some roosters, and I think some very obnoxious male ducks. Look at all these birds. Look at that. They went out. They hear me. They got a big pen, but we let them out usually twice a day, an hour in the morning after my run. So after this video, I'll be letting them out. Hey guys. And so anyway, and then we let them out the last hour of daylight. So look, again, no trail cams. No chemtrails. So that leads us to believe, because there's a theory out there, and I really kind of don't disagree with this, that the powers that be, are trying to decrease the surface population, and they're doing it through disease. Listen, you know who hates having to take care of those who don't take care of themselves the most? Well, of course, it's the billionaire. It's the super elite. Now, those you hear complain about it the most are the working poor and the lower middle class people. And I'll tell you, because not as a percentage of their income, they don't pay the most in taxes. People like me, those in the highest income tax brackets, we pay the highest percentage of our incomes. But they pay the most uncomfortable percentage of their income in taxes. Now listen to what I'm talking about. What that means is, once they pay their taxes, their income taxes, or whatever form of taxes they pay, personal and property taxes, it's very difficult for them to live on what's left. Those of us who have 7-digit incomes, low 7-digit incomes, I'll give you an example. $1 million a year, I'll pay 37.5% federal income tax rate. So that's $375,000 I'll pay in taxes this year just to the IRS. And that's before you get to the state and blah, blah, blah. Well, that leaves $625,000 left over. And we live on $60,000 a year. The rest just goes into investments anyway, which produce more passive income through stock dividends and rents on real estate properties and whatnot. So it's not as hard as it was when, let's just say 5 or 6 years ago, when I only made $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, and I was paying 27% of that, which is a lower percentage, but it was a larger chunk of what I was bringing in, and it was more difficult to deal with what was left. Okay, so that's why poor people and middle class people, which really are one and the same, the only difference is that middle class people have debt and poor people don't, because they're able to go out and get extended credit, and they like to buy stuff, so they have those payments. It's called retail therapy. It makes a lot of them feel better about themselves. To me, I think it's nuts. It's insane. And that's why they stay in that trap for their whole life. So there's your financial planning tips for the day. But I'll tell you who really gets pissed is billionaires. Because not only are they carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders by owning the corporations that do employ those of us who do work for a living. I can gripe and complain about Mark Zuckerberg all I want, don't care for him, but if it wasn't for Facebook, I wouldn't have a 7-digit income as a social media content creator. It's just that simple. I'm grateful he exists, even though I think he's a batshit crazy narcissist, nutcase who can't be trusted. Admittedly censored conservative content. He claimed Biden pressured him. I don't believe that for a minute. I just think he's afraid of Trump. And the minute Trump's out of office, through whatever means, and if a Democrat takes over the White House again, I fully expect Zuckerberg to start censoring conservative content again, because he's almost socialistic liberal, but it's funny, he doesn't mind being part of the 1%. But anyway, those people are tired of carrying the weight of society. So what are they trying to do? Try and get rid of us. One way is through synthetics. be it chemtrails. It's mostly the machine, the meat grinder. This lie, let me spin around again, no trail cams, but let's start looking at the forest because I'm getting ready to sit over here and tell you sit in the chair and tell you a story. The lie they tell you, go to school, get good grades, go to a good name brand university, get a job where you'll give up the best 30 to 40 years of your life, and you'll get good benefits, health insurance and retirement plan, blah, 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 and live happily ever after. People have done that, the boomers especially, most of Gen X, my generation, the millennials and the Gen Zers aren't falling for it as much. People are calling them lazy. People are saying they don't want to work. Listen, I get that part of it, but I also get the part that, no, they don't want to be exploited. They don't want to give up 10 to 12 hours a day in the best 30 to 40 years of their life to make someone else rich while they can barely get by. I get it. I get both sides, okay? But anyway, so those boomers now especially, and the Gen Xers who don't go out and run every morning and don't exercise and who don't eat a healthy diet and who do abuse substances and suffer from addictions, those people are in poor health, poor shape, and they are putting a very extreme burden on the healthcare system. Well, and a good many of them, they don't have insurance or they don't have the means to self-insure. They're not part of, listen, if you're super, super poor, you can't afford health insurance. Medicaid is going to pay for it anyway. I know one of these, what do you call them? Medicare millionaires have all your assets in mommy's name, so nothing shows in your name, so you get everything for free. He gets like $260,000 hip replacements for free because on paper he's poor. So you got that. Now there are people who really are poor and they get that stuff for free. Then you got people who have extreme incomes or extreme wealth. It's not sensible for them to piss away $30,000 a year on health insurance premiums they never use because, well, when they have health care needs, they just pay for it. Okay? But 85 to 90% of the population probably need some sort of insurance because they're not destitutely poor and they're not affluent. And those people are the problem. So what better way to deal with them than to off them? They do it through chemtrails. They do it through that meat grinder. You work your body down for 40 years to make them rich, and then you can't move afterwards. You're in terrible health. They got to get rid of you. They're spraying us. They're using pills, synthetics. You hear all the time, listen, and I'm not trying to be too personal with this, and I'm not trying to ED, erectile dysfunction. You hear it from guys my age or even 10 years younger than me and up. It's not a problem. You know what one of the biggest causes of that is? Well, obesity, being fat, being out of shape, because, hey, it's all about blood flow, right? Filling that cartilage with healthy blood flow. But it's also the biggest side effect in men, especially men over 40, for so many of these pills that the system pushes down their throats because they don't have time, or they tell themselves these people don't have time to exercise and work out and eat healthy because they got to work 80 hours a week to make the other guy rich. So they got high cholesterol, high blood pressure, all this stuff that could be resolved with proper diet and exercise, but they take pills. They're on 10 pills, 8 pills, a dozen different prescriptions. The biggest side effect for men over 40 is impotence. Yeah, check it out. Google it. I'm not making this stuff up. So how do you expect you can't please your wife or your partner or whatever? Okay? So anyway, I'll tell you, that's one of the greatest benefits of not being on that stuff and being healthy and totally working out. Now, with all this said, I'm going to tell you a story like I've been telling you for 13 and a half minutes. But look, no chemtrails. Is this not undeniable proof that, because, hey, if you're 68 and you're sucking up $500,000 a year on the health insurance or the health system industry and you can't pay for it, guess who's picking up that tab? You say the taxpayers. Well, yeah, of course, but guess who's paying most of that? The billionaires, and they're sick of it. They're sick of it, okay? So they're just spraying stuff out of the planes and they're offing you. The government's been closed for 3 weeks. There's not a chemtrail in the sky. I challenge you after this video, go outside wherever you are and look up and see if you see a single chemtrail. Listen to that plane. You hear that light humming? Like, that's an airplane. There's an airport 12 miles that way. It usually by late morning out here, it looks like a checkerboard up there. There hasn't been a chemtrail up there that I personally can say honestly in 3 days I haven't noticed, but probably for more than a week before that. Once the government shut down, they quit spraying whatever, skies are clean. Go figure. Now, I'm going to read you a story I know you have not heard because it's in a book that I published many, many years ago and then I unpublished. It's called A Demon's Dozen. Author of the best-selling novel From the Graves of Babes, Kevin E. Lake. That's me. All right, I wrote this. I unpublished it because it was poorly edited. A guy named Truman Jackson, he was a great guy, brilliant when he was sober, but when he was drinking, he wasn't worth the tits on a boar hog. He's since drunk himself to death. I met him over in the Philippines. He was never able to get back over here because of his substance abuse. Well, he's a goner. And as soon as I got word he died, I shed one tear, and then I unpublished this book. I was waiting for him to pass on because I didn't want to, he was a buddy. I didn't want to personally insult him like that. But I wrote this around 2010. This is a story called Pills. When I wrote this, people laughed too. They thought, oh, you're watching too much X-Files, too many X-Files. Yeah, well, we've since gone through so much crap since then, like the Little C, caca, hachoo, all this stuff. This story is terrifying. The setting of the first scene is Detroit, Michigan, April 12, 2052. So we're jumping into the future, okay? The apartment was the same as so many, the modern home of the American middle class. 12 feet by 12 feet, walls of solid white just like the 224 others in the apartment complex. A big screen on one wall was the only amenity, minus the 4 chairs, crushed leather recliners. There was one for each family member. Hard times during the Great Recession, which had lasted from 2008 through 2026, gave way to simplicity, taking society back in time in many ways instead of forward. What had advanced in the past half-century, of course, were people's coping mechanisms, thanks mostly to advancements in pharmaceuticals, technology, and science. The way they lived their daily lives bore no resemblance to the way they lived 50 years before. Everyone stayed inside now. Families were safer. Outside, there were terrorists, thieves, murders, and disease. And bugs. Someone might abduct your child, rape your wife or daughter. They could kill you. The most recent statistics are in for mortality. The beautiful lady on IMN, Eisner Morgan News, said, smiling in the big screen, or on the big screen, American men are now living to an average age of 101. She had dark skin, perhaps a trait from ancestors that had come from or north from Mexico half a century before. Her hair was red, Irish genes perhaps. Her eyes, sky blue, contrasted sharply against her mocha skin. Women in the U.S., she continued, are reaching the average age of 110 when they die of natural causes. Since people no longer drive, smoke, drink, or use illicit drugs, all our daily necessities for such former wastes of time and ill ways of living being met by Pfizer pharma technology, accidental deaths in the U.S. are all but a thing of the past. Get that. Pfizer pharma technology. What sort of mergers must take place between now and 2054? What glorious days in which we live, Shelley said from her reclined position. Her son and daughter were sitting between her and her husband, Don, reclined, techno goggles on. They did not hear her. They were preoccupied with their daily lesson. Shelley was 40 years old. She was now looking forward to another 70 years of blissful happiness after receiving the news report. Glorious it is, Don said, his eyes fixed on the big screen. I don't know how people ever lived 50 years ago. All that time wasted, leaving home to go anywhere, work, vacation, the grocery store. Speaking of which, he said, almost turning his head to face his wife, but not quite, viewing the act as a useless waste of energy. What's for dinner? What do you want? Lasagna, he said, mouth-watering. Okay, she said, I'll fix it now so it will be ready by the time the kids are done with school. Shelley reached up, as strenuous as the act was, and pulled her techno goggles off their harness. Placing them on her face, she said the command, food. An array of choices popped into view in front of her. Lasagna. She double-blinked on the icon. As she spoke the words, 4 tubes came down from the contraption above their heads. They looked like the suction tubes used at bank drive-through windows from half a century before, back when people wasted their time performing such tedious chores as going to the bank. Out of each tube dropped one small pill, the big P on both sides, glorifying the manufacturer, Pfizer Pharma Technology. Dinner is served, she said. We're home, Hannah, their daughter said, plopping her goggles off. She slid them upward. The fat wobbled on her lower arms like Jell-O from a previous era when people actually ate Jell-O and other foods. I'm hungry. Donnie said, popping off his goggles as well. He hated to be called Junior. Junior was so 20th century. What's for dinner? Lasagna, his mother said. Almost in sync, the family took their pills from the tubes, plopped them in their mouths, and cherished the feeling as they dissolved. Pfizer Pharma technology had created dissolvable pills just in the past decade, as water resources around the world were too precious to waste on such needless uses as taking pills. Take the vacation of a lifetime, the beautiful girl on the commercial was saying. The white sandy beaches of Costa Rica are waiting. She wore a bikini and appeared to be standing on the very beach she was plugging. Her silicone breasts were the most perfect Dawn had seen on the big screen in the past hour. We should go there this evening, Hannah said. We haven't been to the beach in a week. I have a concert tonight, Donnie said. Have it at the beach, Dawn said. There'll be more hotties there, clad in bikinis. That's a great idea, his son said, almost smiling. Smiling would have required emotion, such a waste of time and energy. You shouldn't fill your son's head with such garbage, Shelley said. I take it you don't want to go, Dawn said. You couldn't use a full-body massage from one of those South American pool boys? I didn't say that. Can we go, Hannah said, almost with excitement in her voice, but not quite. She had never known excitement in all of her 16 years. She began to display it as a baby, but her parents were quick to throw her on the perfect medication to subdue it. How dare those children show excitement? They must be medicated. Okay, Susan said, but we're just staying long enough for me to get a massage and Donnie to have his concert. Mom, Donnie said. Yes? There's a strange sensation on my leg around my calf. It's called an itch, she said. Here. She pulled her goggles back on, spoke a few commands, blinked twice, and out of her son's tube popped another pill. Big P on both sides. Take that. Her son did as she ordered. The sensation was gone instantly. Taking pills instead of just reaching down and scratching. Man, you talk about the convenience of comfort, no? Can you believe people actually used to lean over and scratch something like that, Dawn said? Their skin would get all red and stuff. It would stay like that for an hour. Wow, Donnie said. It is just so much easier to take a pill for everything. We really aren't too far removed from the Stone Ages, are we? Now, our setting jumps to Glendora Island in the South Pacific, where it's alleged they have many mermaid parties. Our profits were up 37% last year, Thomas Fillmore, CEO of Pfizer Pharma Technology, said. He took a sip from his scotch and tonic. His feet were resting on the crushed leather rest in front of him. He sat in a chair of the same material. He looked out the large picture window on the mezzanine level of his resort-like home. Coconut and mango trees, the only thing between the home and the beach on his property's border. Small waves crashed on the white sand, local villagers with nets in the surf, hoping for the day's catch to be enough to feed their families. That's about how much we were up, his best friend, Charles Morgan, descendant of the great banker who 170 years before had changed how banking was done all over the world. Thanks to the increase in over-the-limit charges of those debit cards, if people have to choose between paying an extra fee or waiting for their government checks another day to get their fix, be it a trip, a change of mood, or even a roast beef sandwich tablet, they choose to pay the fee. Doesn't bother me. He puffed from his Cuban cigar, a real one. I've heard you guys actually put real tobacco in your cigarette and cigar pills. Is that true? Yes, Fillmore said, taking another sip of his drink. 1 leaf per 1 million pills. The two men laughed fiendishly. How are things in China going? Morgan asked, turning to Dennis Eisner. The CEO of Disney was standing at the window, a pair of binoculars in his hands. He was peering at a couple of young village girls on the beach. Man, they're hot, he said. Ring the bellhop. I want them up here for later. I asked you a question, Dennis, Morgan said, irritated by being ignored, even by another billionaire. How is China? Oh, Eisner said, walking over to take a seat on a similar crushed leather chair facing his two friends. Everything is great. We've bought them up the equivalency with the American 1950s lifestyle. We've brought them up to the equivalency of the American 1950 lifestyle. They're setting record numbers for new home and car ownership. Family is still important there, but don't worry, our legal arm will profit big time over the next couple of decades. We're just about to introduce mass divorce. How do you plan to do that? Fillmore asked, gesturing the servant to bring him another drink. Same way we did it in the States in the 1980s, he said, taking up his drink. We're starting to run shows on our channels depicting single-family households. And in another couple years, that's the only family dynamic that will be on the air. People will think it's the norm. That combined with an increase in materialism, don't worry, we know what we're doing. We've done it before. Wonderful, Morgan said, throwing his head back, chuckling. So I guess our buddies over at General Electric will see an increase in sales as they start doubling sales for all their household appliances. 2 households now per family instead of 1. Perhaps we should all buy more shares of GE before it happens. Folks, you laugh. You say this is crazy. Follow the timeline of our history and how these corporations have dictated the way we live. And the best thing they ever came up with to sell 2 of every unit was to split the American family into 2 households. And then, bam, you double your sales instantly. How do you do it? Television programming is a pretty powerful tool. That's why they call it programming, and that's why there's not one in our house. Oh yeah, I'm the crazy guy. Crazy Lake, Crazy Lake. I digress. Let me get back to our story. Where are they technologically? Fillmore asked, ignoring the banker's last remark, still talking about how they're controlling China here in the year 2054. Or talking about GE. Why buy shares when you could just have more issued anyway? Take a cut from the offering. That's what Morgan would do. He was simply trying to lure them in to buy the shares of the offering. I don't know, Eisner said. That isn't my department. Where's Gates? I haven't seen him today, Morgan said. He had a couple village girls brought up to him last night. He's probably still with them. I talked with him about this yesterday, though. He was telling me that China and India are both where the States were in the 1990s. He's brought them up to speed with internet usage. Just like in America half a century ago, adults are looking at porn and kids are playing online games. So we're introducing another addiction for adults and turning the brains of their kids into cheese, Fillmore said, accepting his drink from the servant. Wonderful! Yeah, Morgan said, taking another puff from his Cuban. They're screaming to be like Americans, just as they always have. They think times are so hard because they have to leave home for practically everything. It all starts with the fantasy world of the internet. Tease them. Let them imagine the possibilities of how simple life can be. Gates' grandfather would roll over in his grave if he knew what we were doing with his creation. Who do we put in the White House for the next 4 years? Fillmore asked, always concerned about which puppet would be loyal to their strings. I like the guy from the Midwest, Eisner said. He's big on farming. He can convince the people how important it is that Americans stay on their pharma diet, that we keep sending our real food overseas to all the poor people who still eat the stuff. I'm leaning towards him as well, Morgan said. His family is associated with Monsanto. We've just underwritten another $1 billion worth of bonds for them. If we get him in office, we'll do 10 times that every year the whole time he's in there. Who's buying the bonds? Fillmore asked. The Chinese and Indians, of course. You don't think Americans invest anymore, do you? They have no need. We've got them entirely dependent on government money. Do we have to knock anyone off to get this guy in office? Fillmore asked, turning his head to face the banker. His arm paused halfway to his mouth, his drink in hand. Of course, Morgan said, giving his friend a stern look. Since when have we never had to knock someone off? There's still a small resistance group in the States. Those idiots that still live off the land, eat real food, do real work. I thought our military took care of those simpletons, Eisner said, watching as the bellhop walked 2 beautiful 20-year-old South Pacific princesses through the door. Good God, man, he said, snapping at the servant. Bathe them first. Who knows what these commoners carry? The military is taking care of most of them, Fillmore said. They've been quite busy with the war in Europe, as you know. If only those French bastards had gotten on board, Morgan said. That place went to crap when the Rothschilds died off. Who would have thought Spain, of all people? Poland would have joined them, though. Who would have thought Spain, and of all people, Poland would have joined them, though? Eisner said, recovering from the bellhop's insult of bringing him unbathed commoners. There's always a small group of holdouts, Fillmore said, bringing the discussion back to the state of affairs in their homeland. Not to worry, though, he said, resting back in his chair even more. No one wants to get off their asses to do anything about anything. The movements won't last. If so, we'll just poison the pills with hallucinogens again, make the general public put an end to it. That's too easy, Eisner said. I prefer good old-fashioned scare tactics. Remember the big one your grandfather implemented in the 1980s? Morgan blew perfectly formed smoke rings after asking the question. When he took that 8-year-old kid and gave his dad his own show about wanted people across the states? Oh yeah, Eisner laughed. That's when people began becoming too scared to let their kids out of their sight. No one trusted their neighbors anymore. It was no longer safe for men to go into teaching. That was classic. All the men laughed and continued their indulgences. Whatever became of that kid anyway? Morgan asked. I don't know. Who cares? The plan worked. That's all that ever matters. The plan. Now, let's go back to Detroit, Michigan. Our family of 4 disgustingly obese human beings who never leave their chairs and think they're living in this perfect fantasy utopia because of those goggles and those tubular pills. Everyone ready to go? Don asked, his voice almost rising toward the end of his statement. Almost. Yes, his family members said in unison. Take us away, Mama. All 4 pulled on their techno goggles. Shelley scanned the choices. Okay, so now we're jumping back to Detroit, Michigan, where we left off. The modern folks of America in 2054, addicted to extreme comfort, think they've got the fantasy life, though their slovenly, disgusting and morbidly obese bodies never leave their recliners, but they are enjoying all the modern comforts given them through their techno goggles and their tubes that give them their pills for all their needs. Okay? Why would anyone go outside and play? Why would anyone eat real food when you can take a pill? Why would you exercise when that's so hard? Why would you bend over and itch your skin when you can take a pill? All right, back to our family in Detroit. Everyone ready to go? Don asked, his voice almost rising toward the end of the statement, like mine did. Almost. Sorry, I'm not on all that garbage. Yes, his family members said in unison. Take us away, Mama. All 4 pulled on their techno goggles. Shelley scanned the choices under the vacation tab. She blinked twice, double-clicking on Costa Rica. In an instant, the family of 4 was laying on the white sandy beaches of Costa Rica without having to leave the convenience of their crushed leather couches in their small 12 feet by 12 feet home in Detroit. They would not have to deal with the nuisance of sunburn, lines at airports. I have to pee, Donnie said. In his view, through his goggles, he spotted a palm tree, no one around. He saw himself walking to it, ducking behind it, and letting it rip. The tube connected to the end of his penis took the fluid, draining it through the central metal post of his couch, its main support, and carried it on to the public sewer system. There, all the chemicals from his daily allowance of pills would be separated and recycled once his urine was exported to India, of course, and put back into Pfizer Pharma Technologies' next batch of similar medications. Recycling had become the norm by 2052. It saved the corporations billions. Yeah, trust me, when there's money in it for them, you'll see it. So when they can recycle and refeed you your urine, they'll do it, as long as it's profitable. I'm going for my massage, Shelley said, scanning options for her physical appearance. I hear the guys down here like blondes. She chose to make herself appear 15 years younger, slim, with long flowing blonde hair and big blue eyes. For the first time since she had been 15 years younger, her mammary glands, I'll say, because this is a social media, and her buttocks, I'll say, no longer sagged. In reality, she was disgustingly obese, just like her fellow middle-class Americans. She had bed sores all over the backside of her body from inactivity, having not left her chair since it was installed just after her son was out of diapers. Her appearance didn't bother her any more than the pain from her sores or the stiffness in her back, thanks to Pfizer Pharma Technologies pills. Anytime she wanted to feel better physically or emotionally, she simply techno-goggled herself to a better place. The American dream had come true for her. "Excuse me for a while, kids," Don said, staring at a beautiful Costa Rican girl, perfect body, walking along the beach. She had looked at him and smiled. He quickly scanned the options in his techno-goggles, opting to be a young, bodybuilding sex machine. "I've got a show," Donnie said, scanning the occupation section. A few seconds later, a pill under the rock star tab came out of his tube, big P on both sides. "Later, sis." He double blinked and was gone. "Whatever," she said, scanning now herself. She picked an itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny yellow polka dot bikini and the body of a 16-year-old cheerleader from the first part of the 21st century. Out popped her pill and off she went into the water. 3 handsome Costa Rican boys chasing after her. Now mind you, this is what they're seeing and this is what they're feeling, but they are in crushed leather chairs in Detroit, taking pills, and their brains basically connected to technology. Let's jump back to Glendora Island in the South Pacific and see how the powers that be are living. Eisner joined his friends on the mezzanine, the sun setting behind them. He wore a white cotton robe, nothing underneath. He smelled of a fresh shower. "How were they?" Fillmore asked, musing. He was 3 sheets to the wind, as he was most nights. "Nice," Eisner said. "I think I'll have a couple more like them tomorrow." They broke into laughter just as Morgan stepped out to join them. He was accompanied by Timothy Gates, grandson of the creator of the internet, which was not that one guy who used to be vice president. I can't remember his name. Nobody remembers second place, do they? All right. "So how long do you guys think we can live like this?" Gate asked, smiling. "As long as we want," Fillmore said, surprised by the question. "Our fathers did it, as did their fathers and grandfathers. We are the chosen ones." "Yeah," Morgan said, "and our predecessors wrote that wonderful book thousands of years ago, convincing the masses it was the Jews who were the chosen ones." The men laughed again, facing out across the property, the mighty Pacific in front of them. "Let's go down to the beach," Eisner suggested. "Let's," Fillmore said, rising. Thus ended the group's annual meeting on the white sandy beaches of the South Pacific. Real beaches, surrounded by real women, real tropical fruit, the real world, what little was left of it. Back in Detroit and the rest of a once great nation, others enjoyed their white sandy beaches as well. Anytime they wanted. A pill and a couple blinks, and they were there. The American dream. The end. So folks, in parting, I tell you, it's food for thought, which is better than pills for thought. But again, I started this video more than 30 minutes ago, as you can see. Been plenty of times for more planes to cross the sky, and we've heard them. But look at this sky. With the government shut down for 3 weeks now, many of the powers that be not being able to pull off their evil deeds. Look at that crystal clear sky. It's as blue as the real crystal blue waters of the South Pacific that my family and I are going to be enjoying over Christmas break, while people are back here freezing their buttocks off in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, which is equally beautiful. We're going to be over there for Christmas. But hey, where'd the chemtrails go? Are we or are we not safer with or without our government? See you for more next time.